This is a poem I like to begin with. It is, oh, by the way, I did not write that introduction. Somebody else did. I don't know who. They aren't owning up. I like to start with this one because it's fun for me. I call it Bear Binge. Every fall outside White Center, near the confluence of the Duwamish River and the Sound, dozens of drunk bears cavort where once a westbound train derailed, leaving 400 tons of high-grade corn fermenting between the woods and the tracks. Bears sniffed out the fragrant pool, 80 proof, got thoroughly soused, and sat around all night with their paws on each other's shoulders, singing old camp songs, telling dirty jokes, swapping lies. The railroad put up a fence, dumped dirt on the mash, but didn't dig deep enough. So every year since, the bears dig up the steaming brew and go at it again, like rival salesmen or politicians at a convention. Come next spring, they'll be back, sink their muzzles deep, dance, waddle, and sway, oblivious black bears, sentimental grizzlies, and one mellow Sasquatch. Oblivious, forgetting their territories, and getting along just fine. The kernel for that came from a National Forest Service press release. There was 400 tons of mash, but it was nowhere near here. Music was mentioned. Think of it, how musicians hold sound inside their heads, how they rev it up, pour it out, a temperature inversion blasted into the balconies. What if you could see Rachmaninoff's variations shimmering before you, Ed Meyer raising havoc with Giovanni Bottocini's concerto in B minor, music made at this moment, tweaked from the bridge of a double bass, plucked from the beard with the man with the violin? What if you could see the fat notes rising, rowdy corpuscles careening through the veins of his arm and out into the concert hall? A tapestry richer than anything Croesus owned. Wouldn't that change your life? Think how music dances into our bodies. Such precision, such order. How it funnels into our intricately folded ears. How we cradle it deep inside. How we carry it into the rainy streets. A hot front rising. What's a woman thinking to take off her apron, put the knife down among the potatoes half peeled for supper, and leave, the screen door closing behind her? White sheets flap in the yard, a blizzard of bees covers her retreat. It's a powerful notion, certainty let go. My neighbor's mother walked away from 2 kids, a sound husband, an apple tree planted the year they were married. Didn't even take an extra pair of shoes. Gone 10 years, she came back one Sunday, resigned to salvation. Dinner on the table when the family got home from church. They never asked. She never explained. My mother tried it. Walked away from the farm with me, a babe in arms, and a cardboard suitcase she lugged halfway to town, then turned around and walked the other way when the neighbor offered her a ride back home. Better leave it all, she told me. Take nothing that could change your mind. Sometimes late at night when the moon is up, the wind right, and the owl in the fir tree all afternoon has issued its low, insistent call, I stand on the porch, barefoot in my nightgown, my hand on the knob, the front door ajar, and think how easy to pull it shut. Step down the path, through the fireflies swarming between juniper and broom, out the gate and the privet hedge. Close that too, and keep going. Now, I wouldn't do that, mind, but there is the nightgown and the doorknob, and one does think about such things. Okay. There was a footbridge. It's been there a long time in Dykstra Park in Auburn. It's very near the river. It goes across the river from one side to the other. And a few years ago, it had to be replaced, portions of it, because the wood was rotten. Not a good thing for a footbridge. No? So I got my camera. I was still working for the paper then. And I went out and I watched. And you know how much fun it is to watch other people work? Oh, it was marvelous. Classy guys, these short, barrel-chested, middle-aged Spanish construction workers. All day they shagged their skinny butts and wonderful faces, replacing bad wood in a narrow bridge across the Green River. Festive in their orange vests with the white safety bars on the back and the silver hard hats emblazoned with American flags. Industrious as dwarves in an old fairy tale. True gentlemen, compadres from somewhere near Barcelona. Courtly, precise, no nonsense among them. Not a single swear word or rude tattoo. Up and down they go in their yellow cage, knocking bolts from wood so rotten it crumbles like old bread. They use hand signals to communicate, as baseball players do. Team players. And oh, their equipment. Shiny wrenches long as your arm, sledgehammers heavy enough to ring anybody's bell, a blue forklift the size of a small building, silver cable coiled thick as the driver's waist. A yellow crane holds up the entire swinging weight of the bridge, some 60,000 pounds pressure, they tell me. A smaller one wrestles old beams out and new ones in. A ticklish business. At any moment they could lose the whole thing into the river. The beautiful hard-hatted men in the yellow cage left swinging through nothing. The water, dark green below, sluggish as the mind of a bigot or a shark. But predictable miracle, the tower rights itself. The straps tighten, the bolts go in easy as toothpicks through jello, and the bad instant passes. You know it by the subtle shift of their shoulders, their joint, buttless swagger, that bravura air. Are any of you old enough to remember the Watkins man?
I used to sell them.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the Watkins man in person. Now, it wasn't him, but it was somebody very like him who used to come to my door in the wilds of Oregon when I was barefoot and pregnant and very fat. There is about catalogs something to do with the wistful nature of desire. I keep the Christmas ones in the bathroom to pour over in the tub, clear through July. All those pretties I have no use or space for and can't afford anyway. They remind me of the possibilities, the riches just out of reach. Years ago, the Watkins man came by our place on the Fruitvale Road, the only man I saw for months on end. I was maybe 19 and he was 70 if he was a day. Wore a gray fedora, red feather in the band, suit frayed at cuffs, a missing shirt button replaced with a paper clip. But his shoes were shiny as hope. Pregnant again, I could only get into an apron and a pair of bib overalls borrowed from the ship's cook, whose good-hearted wife lived up the road. He was a comfort, the Watkins man, a grandfatherly fellow with an edge that minded I might have been pretty once, before all babies. He left me his catalog of economy-sized pudding mix, big bottles of vanilla flavoring, soothing unguents in colored tins, new cleaning products to make my life easier, even without running water. All the spices I didn't know I was missing. Grandparent modern poems are probably a sort of a, well, they're necessary, what can I say? And I have one that I rather like. I'm the grandmother in the process, or at least in this particular one. I call it The Grandmothers Go to War. And it's for my sister Catherine. We are the strong ones, bumptious, blue-haired, rip-handed, and dangerous in defense of our grandchildren. We are an untapped power. We are furious, disciplined, manipulative, sly. Lessons learned in a half-century of service to quarrelsome men, far more gimlet-eyed than the children they would leave us to keen at night. And we won't have it. We will not lie quiet while generations are turned in a moment to scattered ash. We have nothing to lose but our grandchildren. Send us instead. We will shroud ourselves in burnouses, cast down our angry eyes, pack ferocity around ample waists under lymphedemic arms, strap books to our cottage cheese buttocks, poems to our fulsome thighs. Unobtrusive as ghosts, we will slip over the false borders and into the strongholds of those who would enslave us. We are old hands at this. Black ships laden with riches, we will bring to our sisters the perfume of knowledge. We will bring them bright mirrors to show them their beauty. We will show them the strengths we share with their daughters. We will show them our scars and invite them to join us, for this is a holy war fought by all women. Together we are invincible. In the names of our grandchildren, we are relentless and unafraid. I used to spend a fair amount of time in nursing homes, partly because my own grandparents were in them, and partly because they were just fascinating places. The stories that lie in that place, you would not believe unless you go and listen. Some of them are fractured. Some of them don't hang together altogether well, but if you listen, you find the connections. This is what happened when I visited a woman named Mary Peterson at the Green Acres Rest Home in Auburn in 1963, 2 years after I graduated from high school. "Show us how the boats go, Mary." She looks out at the brightness of uniforms, glass and chrome, everything too loud for sleep, like the sound of sun beating down on snow, and her shoulders begin to move. Palms together and weaving, her voice wearing nasal tones down to a glottal stop, Mary launches the chant for whale. Umiaklik uk utuk. The dark hunters she knew have been sewn into caribou, weighted with stones for their last journey home to sea. Beside her, the pale old men in bibs whine for their mothers. Withered white women, rhinestone earrings and knotted shawls, cling to their jealousies. My cup, my deck of cards. She is here every day, her wheelchair lined up with the howlers' hands clutching patchwork around their knees. The gabblers whose mouths can't stop going on, random and muted as lives, torn to mismatched rags. She is a cedar pole, grooved, recorded wake of a Nuksuk heading north through waters leaping with frozen souls. In her body she carries the dip of oars and the laughter, hearts lifting, harpoons rising, flying like ptarmigan. Fathoms of water, air, the ancient songs press against her ears, swell her throat, enter her hands to show us how the kayaks go. I like fairy tales. They're fun to work with, especially when we don't have anything pressing to say. You can reinvent a fairy tale and get a lot of mileage out of that. Do any of you know about Angus MacOg? There's a wonderful Yeats poem called The Song of the Wandering Angus. If you don't know it, oh my goodness, you should find it and learn it. Angus MacAug was a young god in the pre-Celtic panoply of nature people. 150 swans, a brood, a bank, a bevy, a drift, a game, a herd, a silence, a sounder, a team, a wedge, a shining, a whiting, a whiteness or blackness, an error among the reeds sheltering cygnets, and in the cold water of Loch Beldrachen, a stir of drooped feathers, a long lamentation. Sick for love of a girl he'd seen only in dreams, Angus MacAug, favorite child of the Dedanen, wooed flowers in the bright fields of summer, then languished a year and a day in his mother's house. Longer far than the 9 months the sun stood still, so he could be born in a single shining between night dark and light. Now he stood on the bank of Loch Beldrachen, brought there by 60 of his father's best chariots, 60 of Erin's finest horses, strong men enough to fill the Boyne Valley, their boots treading a new road, their breath changing the weather. Dazzled, he watched as below, between rocks and furled water, 350s of golden-haired girls became white-breasted swans linked in pairs, held in place by a curse and a silver chain. Somewhere hidden among them beat the fairy heart of Car Ibermet. How was he to claim her? In the quick, cold November wind, Angus stood alone, his body made frail, near death for love of this girl, who could change in an instant, from maid to swan to ripe yewberry to hazelnut, iridescence of brook trout leaping, swift threads of music, laughter wrinkling the shining air. Gathering his strength to the form of a mighty swan, Angus lifted his quiet voice. Come to me, Cara Bremen. Angus is calling. The silver chain fell away, and the fairy maid rose up out of the water. In his wings, Angus wrapped her, circled with her 3 times around wild Loch Beldrachen, and they flew away in a tumble of leaves, a rush of air and white feathers, singing so sweetly that all his great company, 60 of fine chariots, 6 of fine horses, enough warriors to raise a fog, their booted feet shaking fledglings out of nests hidden in reeds and trees. Every man, woman, and child, every beast within hearing, entranced by their song, slept 300 years, and in fact, may be slumbering still. The beast at our door. You might see him summer evenings sitting out on your suburban lawn, curling pink tongue and white teeth in his smiling mouth. Head down, brushy tail swung low, he trots through the neighborhood on feet dainty as foxes, casing the joint. He'll be back around midnight. Tip trash cans, empty dog food bowls on back porches, snatch a wandering hen, maybe leave a few feathers, scent on a light pole, pile a scat. Displaced from the wild, he's eased on into town, made his den in the dump near the trailer park, behind an empty building that smells of machine oil and antifreeze. He might even hole up right under your house, lying there, listening through the floor, always aware of exactly where you are. Wise to us, he avoids traps. Approached, he fades into nothingness, smoke in autumn, early fog, gray ghost among us. Coyote lifts the shrill blade of his yodel into the sunset sky, enchanting us, chilling us with his silvery moon song, his merry, observant eye. And this is a story I heard from one of my students, who heard it from a woman on the bus. Abandoned silos. She said her friend claimed an alien man who looked a lot like Russell Crowe came to visit her at night, stepped in through the hospital window, sat down on the bed and spoke to her gently, his voice dark, sorghum sweet, buzzing, a box of bees. She might go with him, he told her, but she was paralyzed by sorrow. Night after night, wearing gloves and a black raincoat, he came in through the window, sat down on the bed, and spoke to her in a voice like singing. In the dark, she lay listening. Moonlight shimmered on her pillow, in the hollows of her hands. There was something about the baby, the woman said. Something the alien wanted her friend to know. She shifted the shopping bag between her knees. From drugs or strangeness, she said, her friend could not rouse herself. So the beautiful alien returned to his spaceship parked on the hospital lawn and flew away in a beam bright as heaven, leaving a scorch mark on the grass. But there is more to the story. The dead baby. The mother's grief, real as any rock. Her leap from the 10th floor. Night wind, the white wings of her hospital gown failed to catch. After that, the woman said, she began taking the bus wherever it went, a traveler in a silver bullet, carrying her friend's ashes away from the cities, the harsh lights and the freeways, past flap-gated farm gates, good soil blown to dust, abandoned silos like rusted rocket ships yearning up, far up and out over the world's fragile balcony. Thank you all. What a marvelously attentive audience. That was great.